Om. 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 Sahana Vavatu. Sahano Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu. Ma Vidvishavahai. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Sairam, everyone. We were studying the seventh Anvaka of Chamakam. I had covered quite a few mantras, at least more than half of the mantras. This seventh Anvaka relates to the inner yajna, the yajna which takes place within us mentally. And we are looking at various deities who are present within us and their contribution for the yajna. And so this seventh Anavaka prays to Lord Rudra to grant us the boon of their grace, which will be beneficial for performing the inner yajna. Many of the commentators have also stated that these mantras relate to various implements which are used in the yajna itself externally. But the Bhashyakaras, the commentators, were all stating that this relates to the inner yajna. Because after all, these deities are present within us and their help is needed for the inner yajna. So we will continue from where we left off. The next mantra is Aindragnascha me. Aindragnascha me. Aindragnascha me. So this mantra is not too difficult. There are no aspirated consonants. And so the mantra should be reasonably simple. As I had mentioned, for each of these mantras, we should add kalpatam. That means, may it be beneficial. Okay. Aindragnascha me kalpatam. Aindragnaha is the mantra itself. Aindragnaha relates to something Indra and Agnaha. Indra is Indra. Agnya means Agni. So Aindragnaha, I think I had already mentioned that it is a declension or modification of the word Indra Agnaha with an, which is another pratyaya or suffix or affix, which gives a meaning that something which is derived from, which has descended from Indra and Agni. So when Indra and Agni come together, whatever comes out of that is the Aindragnaha. So some people may say it's a child of Indra and Agni. So that when two of these forces, deities, come together to confer something to us, that is Aindragnaha. And we also looked at how much the Indriyas, or the Indra is nothing but the lord of the Indriyas, which is mind. The mind should be focused on certain deities for anything to be achieved. So that when mind joins Agni, Agni is nothing but the messenger who takes our prayers to the Lord and brings back the boons. Okay. So we are asking for that joining of the mind and Agni, who is the messenger of the Lord. And through that, whatever yajna we perform, internally or externally, will be beneficial. So we are asking Lord Rudra to grant us the boon that what comes out of this mind joining the Agni may be beneficial to us as well as to everyone else in the world. Aindragnascha me kalpatam. We look at the next mantra. Vaishva devascha me. Vaishva devascha me. Vaishva devascha me. This we have already come across this mantra earlier on also. So this mantra is rather simple because of the absence of any aspirated consonants. So it should be simpler for you all to chant. Vaishva devascha me kalpatam. Let's look at the meaning Vaishva Devaha. Because as you have seen, the mantra has already appeared earlier. We have discussed, that is whatever comes from the Vishva Devaha. See, Vishva Deva in the previous Anuvaka we have looked at, Vishva Deva. That means all the gods. All gods are covered in the meaning of Vishva Deva. Whatever comes out of all the Devas, whatever relates to all the Devas is Vaishva Deva. So that mantra is symbolizing what we offer to our Pitrus. Okay, Pitrus means our ancestors. So everything in this world, all the people in this world are nothing but Pitrus. Their embodiments, they are also called Devas. They are the ones through whom we are all born. So in some way, they also contribute to our own birth. So we give Pitrudana, or we offer oblations for their benefit. So that's called Shraddha. That Shraddha is done multiple times. So for a Brahmana, we have to do twice a day. So the first one refers to the Pratha Kala, in the morning. This is considered the third Yama, or in the evening we can say. So that's what the commentators say, that's why it's appearing twice. The importance of remembering the Pitrus and offering oblations to them. So the prayer is, we asking Rudra, let our Shraddha offering to the Pitrus or Devas, all the Devas and their descendants, may that be beneficial. Okay, Vaishva Devascha me kalpatam. So that's the meaning of this mantra. We will go to the next mantra. Marutvatiyascha me. Marutvatiyascha me. Marutvatiyascha me. This mantra is also rather simple, without any aspirated consonants. So Marutvatiyascha me kalpatam. So Marutvatiyascha me again is when the sandhi split, is Marutwatiyaha cha me. I think we have looked at it a few times, but I thought there's no harm in repeating. Marutwatiyaha cha me. We have already looked at Marut as wind god, god of wind, because it relates to Maruti. The son of Marut, or the wind god, is Maruti, Hanuman. So Marutvatiyaha means all that which relates to Marut, wind. We also looked at the wind is the one which is needed for taking things around, spreading things, for everything to move around in our own body, in our own mind. Wind plays a big role. So we are asking that let that spreading of everything through the power of that deity Marut, let that be beneficial. Marutvatiya me kalpata. All that which gets moved by wind god, let them be beneficial to us as well as to the world. So that is the meaning of this mantra, Marutvatiyaschame Kalpatam. Let's look at the next mantra. The next mantra is Mahendraschama. 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 I have already mentioned the ma is, for many of these mantras, may becomes ma because of sandhi rules. Because when the may is followed by a vowel, it becomes ma. Okay, instead of may, it becomes ma. So that is because of sandhi. But if you look at it separately, it is Mahendraschami. Okay, so it's better for you to understand. So Mahendraschami Kalpatam. Okay, we look at the meaning. Again, it's Mahendraha Chame is when the mantra is split. So Mahendraha. Mahendraha comes from the word Mahendraha. Maha Indraha is Mahendra. Mahendraha. Mahendraha is that which is derived, that which relates to Mahendra. Maha means the great Indra. Among Indras, the greatest one. So we can say Indra itself is mind. Mahendra is also mind, which is the superior mind. You can say the superior mind. You know, there are mind also has multiple names and levels, and Mahendra is mind itself, the superior mind. Okay, the mind, the all powerful mind. Whatever comes from that is Mahendra. So any thought which comes from any sankalpa or any determined thought, determination which comes from that, let that be beneficial to the world and to ourselves. It's a prayer to Sri Rudra. Because even though our mind is our mind, the mind is not within our control. It is difficult to control. For that we need the prayer from Rudra. Because Rudra, I think we have already discussed, Rudra is when mind is fully well controlled. That divine aspect of Rudra is Rudra. Otherwise, he is Indra. Okay, then Mahendra is nothing but Rudra himself. But the Rudra who controls the senses, who controls all thoughts. So we are asking that all the thoughts which come from that Mahendra, let them be beneficial to us. Mahendraschami Kalpatam. So let's look at the next mantra. Adityascha me. Adityascha me. Adityascha me. Mantra is very simple, no aspirated sounds, so it should be rather simple for you to pronounce. When the mantra is split up, it's Adityaha cha me. Adityaha cha me. Adityaha is the name of sun. Aditi is the mother of sun. Kashyapa Maharshi, who was considered one of the sons of Brahma, he had two wives. One was Diti and the other one was Aditi. Diti gave rise to Daityas, who turned out to be demons. Whereas Aditi was very devout and very sattvic in nature. She gave birth to Adityas. So all the children of Aditi are called Adityas. And so there are 12 Adityas, Dwadash Adityas, and so on. But Aditya means anyone who is born from Aditi, son. I don't know, earlier on in one of the, I think when we discussed Suprabhatam, I may have covered that. Aditya means that aspect of sun which is reflected in us. When God is reflected in human being, that concept is called Aditya. Okay, so when divinity is reflected in us, that some energy within us gets activated, and that activated essence of sun which is reflected in us is Aditya. So we are praying to Lord Rudra, let that be beneficial to us. Let him grant us that. Let him grant that sun be reflected, let the Atma be reflected in us, which is nothing but Buddhi. Buddhi means discrimination. So we are asking the Lord that we be granted discrimination, which is a reflection of divinity in us. So Adityashchami Kalpatam. So it's like when we pray to sun, we actually pray to sun so that sunlight will be reflected in us in the mornings. So the same way, when we pray to the Lord, we ask that the Lord light be reflected in us. When that gets reflected, then what comes out of us will be divine light, everything good in us. And so Aditya is the one who fructifies, one makes all goodness manifest in us. That is the deity to whom we are praying, and we are praying to Rudra that be granted to us. Adityashchami Kalpata. The next mantra is Savitraschame. 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 Again, it's rather simple mantra without any aspirated consonants. If you split the mantra, it's Savitraha cha me. Savitraha cha me. The meaning of Savitraha means that which comes from Savitru. Savitru is another aspect of sun. We have already looked at it earlier in the previous Anuvaka. Savitri, everyone knows that who brought back to life her husband Satyavan. That means she is capable of granting life, protecting life. That's the nature of Savitru. So the aspect of sun who is able to protect life in us and make it last, that aspect of the Lord is Savitru. So what comes out of that is life given by sun. So let the life given by sun on a day-to-day basis to us, let it be beneficial. Savitraschame kalpatam. So that is a prayer. We are asking Lord Rudra to grant us the boon of the Savitra, which is that aspect of sunlight which gives us life. Let that be beneficial to us. Savitraschame kalpatam. Let us look at the next mantra. Sarasvatascha me. Sarasvatascha me. Sarasvatascha me. Sarasvatascha me kalpatam. Again, this mantra is also rather simple without any aspirated sounds. So it should be easy to pronounce. Sarasvata. When the mantra is split, it's Sarasvataha cha me. So what is Sarasvataha? Let's look at the meaning. That which originates from Sarasvati. Whatever originates from Sarasvati. We have already looked at, Sarasvati has appeared in previous Anuvakas as well. So Sarasvati is the goddess of speech, or the speech which flows from our mind as words. She's the one who commands, controls those words. So Sarasvati is nothing but words and speech which comes out of us. Okay, Sarasvati is the deity. Sarasvati is all that speech which comes from that principles of Sarasvati within us is Sarasvata. So we are asking Lord Rudra that let that be beneficial. Let be granted to us that our speech comes from Sarasvati, and let that be beneficial to us and the world. Sarasvatascha me kalpatam. Sarasvatascha me kalpatam. The reality is, even every mantra which we pronounce is nothing but Sarasvata. So we can also say that we are praying to Lord Rudra that let mantras come from our mouth. Okay, let every Vedic mantra which comes from us, let it be beneficial to us and the world. So that is the meaning of this mantra, Sarasvatascha me kalpatam. We will look at the next mantra, Paushnascha me. Paushnascha me. Paushnascha me. There are no aspirated sounds, but you can pay attention to the ush, paush. Okay, that usha is, the tongue should be pointed upwards when you say that. Paushnascha me. Okay. That's the only letter you need to pay attention to. Other than that, the mantra should be reasonably simple. Paushnaha cha me kalpatam. Paushnaha cha me kalpatam. So let's look at the meaning of Paushnaha. Paushnaha is something related or something which comes from Pushan, Pusha or Pushan. Okay. I think we have already looked at Pusha in the previous Anuvakai or earlier also. Pusha gives us Pushti. Pushti means nutrition. Nutrition, that which keeps us sustained, our life to sustain. Okay, Pusha is that which gives. It is also an aspect of sun, because sun is the one who gives nutrition. Even for we may eat any kinds of vegetables or fruits, any food, but the food has nutrition, and that nutrition is the one which has to be absorbed by us in our body, and that nutrition which is absorbed is the one which keeps us healthy, with all the energy and the enthusiasm to do anything comes from Usha. Okay, without that we will not be able to be active in this world. So we are asking Sri Rudra to grant us that health, that nutrition which comes from Usha. Okay. In Tamil, I think we'll say Poshaku. Okay, Poshaku means, I think that many of you who are Tamils will understand. That means it gives us health of all kinds. Okay. But it's also, I just put some commentary because if anyone is interested, many commentators say this deity Pusha is also responsible for the journey to the next world. Where we go also is something which Vedic texts have said. And this Pusha is the one which looks after all the flocks of sheep and herds. Is also something which Vedas, the Vedic commentators have commented on as the deity who is responsible for. Because one of the reasons is the flocks and the herds, cows and so, their milk and their milk was useful for all the human beings, and their the manure which comes from their droppings are also useful for agriculture, which makes the plants grow well. So in many sense, the Pusha is expected to be working through the herds and animals which the Vedic citizens, Vedic time citizens reared. So the same thing applies to. So in essence, any form of nutrition and sustenance which comes from the word, Pusha is the one who is responsible, and he's the one through that nutrition, when it's absorbed, gives us what's called pushti. Okay, energy to act. So Paushnaha is that which comes from Pusha. So we're asking Lord Rudra that we be granted Paushnaha, which will keep us healthy and active in this world, and let that be beneficial to us as well as to the world. Paushnascha me kalpata. We'll look at some excerpts from Swami's discourses. For the prosperity of the whole world, the primary basis is the goddess of speech. From speech comes the word, and from the word comes the meaning. Thus, speech is the basis for the total meaning that we see around us in the world, and so for the entire material world. It is in this context that we call all matter by the name padartha, or meaning of a word. When we utter a word, say vastra, it means a piece of cloth, and this in itself is the meaning of the word. In this world, every material that can be perceived is interlinked with a word, and the meaning of the word indicates the material of padartha. So padartha means the material item indicated by this word. For the word, the basis is the speech, and the speech is the basis for all matter in this world. This is what has been explained by the word ida. Ida, ida actually. This word of the Veda has been called by another name, and that is Saraswati. Those who are well versed in the Vedas fill their hearts with the contents of the Veda, and at the time they do the yajna, they utter the Veda Vani from the depths of their hearts. And this ability has been called Saraswan. This has been called Saraswan because the words which constitute the Vedavani are within their mind. If these very ideas are expounded in words, it will be called Saraswati. The ultimate form of this in one's mind and what comes out as one's word are called the stream of Saraswati. This stream of words flowing from a stream of thoughts has also been called spring of water. This has been compared to a well in which water comes out swelling. In this analogy, we should note that the more water we take out from the surface, the more will come from the spring, which is the source. In a stream, as much water that flows out will come from the upstream to the downstream. In the same manner, those who are knowledgeable in the aspect of the Vedas, when they give out their thoughts, the goddess Ida gives them strength by which they generate more thought and more words. These flow out like a stream. As such, a knowledgeable person on the Vedas gives more ideas to the world. The strength of Ida will generate more and more noble ideas, so the stream may flow continuously for the benefit of the world. So this course is from 1974 summer course, where Swami is giving the meaning of the word Ida, which is nothing but Saraswati. So as you can see, Swami says that ability of the speech to give forth is called Saraswan. Saras means river. That which moves, flows is Saras. That which flows is Saras. So Saraswan is the ability to flow. Thoughts flow into speech, and the speech also flows as through words. And Swami says this is the basis for the Vedavani, the Vedas themselves come out. And these words, the meaning of these words become the world. For example, if you say the word apple, the meaning of the word apple is the apple itself, the fruit apple itself is the meaning of the word. So that is why even in the theory of creation, Sanatana Dharma says the word sound was the basis of all creation. Sound is nothing but vibration, and that has the ability to produce something, materialize something. And so this, in this concept only, the Veda mantras are capable of producing something tangible, something material. So all this is denoted by the word Saraswati. And as you can see, Saraswati, Paushna, all of them, they all benefit, they keep the world functioning, healthy. All that comes from word, Vedavani. So all this is mentioned. So that ideally, it's the thought which can bring out speech. The speech can manifest as words. Words create this world. All this is denoted by these mantras. And we're asking Lord Rudra, let all this be beneficial. The Saraswati be beneficial, the thoughts be beneficial, the speech be beneficial, the words be beneficial, and what comes out of the word in the material world, let that also be beneficial. These are all aspects of inner yajna, which the Chamakam mantras talk about. We will go to the next two mantras. Patni vatascha me. Patni vatascha me. Patni vatascha me. Rather simple mantra, does not require much effort because there are no aspirated sounds. Patni vatascha me. Kalpatam. Let them be beneficial. Patni vatascha, when we split sandhi, it's patni vataha cha me. Patni vataha cha me. Okay. Let's look at the meaning of this mantra. Patni vataha comes from the word patni vataha. Patni vataha comes from the word patni vataha. So patni vataha means patni, it comes from the word patni vat. I think vat, I have earlier also mentioned vat, mat. They are all what I call matuk pratyaya. That means it gives a meaning that is full of something. It is something is present. We had looked at Hanuman, Brahman, and so on. Balavan, okay, Balavan. Dhanavan. Dhanavat means one who has money. Okay. Dhanavat. Balavat means one who has bala, strength. So Patnivat means one who has Patni. Patni is nothing but wife. One who is an equal partner of Pati. Pati and Patni. Pati means husband, Patni means wife. It's a common understanding. So there's a feminine force of equal, which is also someone who is in charge, is capable of protecting, is Patni. The feminine force which is capable of protecting is Patni. So generally in marriage, Pati and Patni are both are considered to be equal in protecting. One is feminine, one is masculine. So Patni and Pati are needed for anything to fructify in this world, for children to be born, for anything in this world. There is this Shiva Shakti, both have to be present for anything to be activated in this world and to be complete in this world. So Patni Vataha means one who has wife. So in Vedic Yajnas, anyone who is performing has to have their Patni next to them. Otherwise, the Vedic Yajna cannot be performed, because all the Yajnas are performed by Grihastha people, people who are in the household stage. So they are supposed to have always Patni with them. If they do not have Patni, they are not qualified to do the Yajna. I don't know whether you all remember Rama, when Sita was sent to the forest, he was performing Ashwamedha Yaga. he had to have a patni, and so he made Sita in gold as a statue and kept and then performed the yajna. So the patni's presence is essential for anyone to undertake a yajna. So patni vata, in this case, many of the commentators say it is Agni with his wife. Agni accompanied by the wife is patni vata. So the belief is only when the Agni is present along with his wife. Even I think it's a bit of a digression, I guess. Swaha is called, sometimes wife of Agni. So that's why when you offer something to the Agni, you say the mantra Swaha. So you are invoking the wife of Agni because she has to be present for Agni to make anything fruitful, to even to grant a boon. Okay. So the Agni who is present along with his wife Patni, what comes from that is Patni Vataha. Okay, when the Agni is with its wife and whatever comes out of that is Patni Vataha. Okay, so that means that's it's also an indication of something which is prospering, something which can prosper, something which can grow, something which can be created, manifested. Okay, all that comes from the word Patni Vataha. So we are asking, let that Agni. So there is one type of Agni which is called Patni Vataha Agni. So sometimes they say even the vessel also is called Patni Vataha, which give. So there are multiple descriptions of how these yajnas have to be performed. In essence, the feminine force of the Agni also should be present. So it's given equal importance in this mantra. So we are asking, let our yajna be fertile. Let it give rise to something. So we are asking Lord Rudra to grant us the blessings of Patni Vataha, so that whatever we do will be beneficial. Okay, so Patni Vataschami Kalpatam. We'll go to the next mantra. Hariyo Janascha me. Hariyo Janascha me. Hariyo Janascha me. This mantra is the last mantra in this Anuvaka. It's rather simple. There are no aspirated sounds, so it should be very simple for you to pronounce. When the mantra is split, Sandhi is split, is Hariyo Janaha Cha Me. Hariyo Janaha Cha Me. So Hariyojana comes from the word Hariyojana. Okay. So everything you can see in this Anuvaka is something which is derived from something else. Okay. So Hariyojana, Hari means one who holds something, grabs something, okay, takes something, controls something, all that is Hari. Hariyojana means one who yuj. Yojana comes from the word yuj. Yuj is to connect, to tie something together. To connect something together, it's yuj. Like the word yoga comes from the word yuj. The root word is yuj. That means yoking. In English, you can say yoke also. So the one who grabs something and yokes it to something. Okay. So that's called usually a driver of a chariot will hold the reins of the horses, and they will also make sure that they are attached, yoked, harnessed to the chariot. So one who does that, to him we are praying, Hariyo Janascha Me Kalpata. So okay. So we have already looked at what are the horses also. Horses are nothing but Indriyas. Indriyas, which I think we have discussed multiple times in the past as well. Indriyas are always equated to horses, and so the mind has to hold the reins of these horses. They have to be attached and they have to be yoked so that they're fully controlled. And so we're asking the grace of Sri Rudra for our Indriyas to be yoked and they're all controlled so that they are able to be driven along the right path. So Hariyo Janaschame Kalpata. So I have an excerpt of Swami's, quite a few, 2 or 3 excerpts. So this brings to an end the 7th Anuvaka, the last mantra. So we'll read the excerpts. In the same manner, just because we have several sensory organs, we should not go on using them without any control. We should give freedom to the sense organs, but use them within the limits set by one's country, time, and circumstances. Even if the horse belongs to you, it cannot be used without proper reins. Simply because a car is in your name, you cannot use it without applying the brakes at the appropriate time. Simply because the sensory organs belong to you, you cannot use them without proper control. The Vedas have been serving a useful purpose by explaining to you the nature of the human sensory organs and how, when, and in what manner to use them for the benefit of the world. So Swami is talking about the importance of how senses have to be used. So here, it says this translation is a bit funny. One's country, time, and circumstances. It says it is not country. It's the Sanskrit word which Swami would have used is desha, kala, paristhiti. So desha means place. Place, time, and circumstances determine how our senses have to be used. Desha, kala, paristhiti. Desha means the place, the situation where you are, the time, and the circumstances. Paristhiti. The sthiti means status, state, or phase, or whatever you want to call it. Okay. So each of the sense organs should be used according to the time and place and the circumstances. And that's what Swami says. So all this is, so you can see the entire Chamakam mantra, Zanvaka, is a prayer to make sure that whatever we use, however we use, they all use properly. They have full control, Hariyo Janaha. At the same time, it also has to come from well within something which is positive, like Saraswati. So many of the mantras, as you can say, Aindragnas Jave, all of them relate to how our thoughts are formed, from where they come, and how they are to be used, how the senses which may act in this world based on the thoughts which arise in us, they are all well controlled. So we are praying to the Lord, let them be beneficial to ourselves as well as to the world, rest of the world. And even if we want to do good, without God's help, we cannot do anything good in this world. This is understood by the Vedic seers, and that's why they pray. And that activity of, that is called the inner yajna. The inner yajna is whatever comes from within is what comes out also. So whatever comes within, if that is well controlled and beneficial, it gives us all the benefits in this world. And for that, we have to pray to the Lord. So you can say the 7th Anuvaka itself prepares us internally, cleanses us, and strengthens our resolve to do what is right in a very good way. And for that sake, the 7th Anuvaka is used. Let me go on to a couple of more excerpts. The sole purpose of Antar Yajna, internal sacrifice, is to see that the mind does not run after the whims and fancies of the senses, like a master pathetically carrying out the dictates of his servants. The man who is a slave of sensual desire is the world's bond slave. One who has conquered desire is master of this world and the next. It is desire that makes one dependent on others. When there is no control over the senses, desire grows wild. Yajnas and yagas are not undertaken to promote self-interest. They are performed for promoting the welfare of the world. Instead of emphasizing the inner meaning and significance of yajnas, most people pay attention to the external features. Preoccupied with external forms of the yajna, people ignore the basic need to win sense control, without which spiritual sadhana has no meaning. So Swami is very nicely talking about antar yajna, inner sacrifice, because this seventh anuvaka deals with internal yajna, antar yajna. And so Swami says antar yajna is nothing but controlling of the senses and offering them for the beneficial activities in this world. So whatever the senses do should be beneficial to the world and ourselves. And that is the purpose of the inner yajna. And without that, the external yajna, Swami says, is futile, is useless. And yajnas have to be undertaken not to promote self-interest. That is, we should not do yajna for our benefit, personal benefits. Yajna should not be undertaken. They should be undertaken for the benefit of the world. And that means we have to first have sense control. And we should, with that, when we undertake yajnas, they will be fruitful and beneficial to the world. And Swami says the sensual desires have to be fully curtailed for us to undertake any yajna or worship. So all this is the essence of this seventh anuvaka. I have one more excerpt from the same discourse. It's a long excerpt, but I think it's worthwhile. When a child is born, no one can know how it will turn out, whether into a good and noble person or a wicked or an evil person. The father too should set a good example to the son and try to keep him on the straight path. It is by following the examples of the parents that a child grows in life. It was to discharge his threefold debt that Emperor Dasharatha performed yagas and yajnas, ceremonial sacrifices, and ensured the presence of his sons on those occasions. He sent them to great gurus so that they may learn the sacred heritage of the past before they confronted the challenges of the world. He did not calculate that his sons should serve him in his old age. He had no selfish interest in rearing them. He desired sons for the sake of his spiritual well-being. The son owes a deep debt to the parents for the trouble and expenses they underwent to bring him up on right lines. This is the primary duty of a son. The son is entitled not merely to a share in the father's worldly property, he is entitled also to share in the godly life lived by the father. He must follow the high ideals of the father. If the father is given to evil ways, the son can acquire merit himself and reduce to some extent the effects of the sins of the father by cultivating good company, entertaining good thoughts, and doing good deeds. The sage Vasishta assured Dasharatha that many of the sins committed by him had been wiped out by the numerous dharmic deeds of Sri Rama, such as destruction of the Rakshasas and protection guaranteed to the Rishis. So Swami is talking about Dasharatha performing a yajna to get sons, and Swami says he did not get them so that for his own benefit, but for the benefit of the world, and also as a spiritual activity. For his own spiritual growth, he wanted children, and that is why he was blessed with Sri Rama, God himself as son. Swami would say Dasharatha is nothing but us, each of us. Dasharatha symbolizes 10 senses. Dasharatha means everyone who is possessed of 10 senses is Dasharatha, which is nothing but mind. There's a chariot, 10 chariots. And this Dasharatha prayed so that he will get God as his son for his own spiritual advancement. And Swami always says Rama is nothing but Atma Rama, the divine Atma within. He wanted to realize that, and that is why he did penance, yajnas and yagas. And to do that, Dasharatha has to first control all his 10 chariots. The senses have to be controlled. And then Swami goes on to say what the son has to do. If Dasharatha has done and he has gotten a son, what does the son do? The son also will lead a godly life. And the godly life will liberate everyone and remove the sins of his ancestors as well as the people who follow after him. So that is the purpose of all yajnas. This is a debt which the son owes to the parents, the son owes to the rishis, the son owes to the world. All these are reasons why yajnas are performed, so that we discharge the debt we owe to our parents, to the world, to the rishis. And that is the reason for us to do this yajna. That's the reason for us to learn this Chamakam on Rudram Namakam and chant and remind ourselves what we should do. This is the teachings of the rishis. So learning what the rishis have taught us is our way of discharging the debt we owe to the rishis. So Swami has nicely explained, giving us the example of Dasharatha, which is nothing but the one who masters the senses, 10 senses. I have one more excerpt. It is to discharge the debt to one's parents that rites like Shraddha and Tarpanam, ritual offering to the mains, are done. Only a few perform these ceremonies now. The ancients felt that it was sinful for children to be ungrateful to parents to whom they owed their bodies and their achievements. Yajnas and yagas, Vedic rituals and sacrifice, are symbolic rituals designed to redeem these three debts. Yajnas are of two kinds. Antar yajna, internal, and Bahir yajna, external. The internal yajna is the striving to realize the divinity within. The divine is everyone, and it can be realized only through dhyana, meditation. The mind is the sacrificial altar. One has to offer the sacrifice on this altar all one's bad qualities. One has to offer as sacrifice on this altar all one's bad qualities. It may be asked how any bad quality can pollute the body-mind complex when the divine is in the indwelling spirit. But it must be realized that this is not one's first birth in a body. Many lives have preceded this. Man in Sanskrit is called Manava, which means Ma, not Nava, new, not new. Birth as man is the final stage in the upward evolution of the 840,000 species of living beings. In previous lives, one might have been an insect, a worm, a bird, or an animal. It is as a result of this that despite the presence of the divine, man displays now many animal qualities. For example, pride is not an innate human quality. It is a natural trait of a buffalo. If one displays pride, it means he has been a buffalo in previous lives, and this buffalo quality inheres in the human. Some persons exhibit stupid stubbornness. This is not a human trait, it's a quality of a sheep. So basically, Swami is telling why this Antar Yajna is needed, because there are many bad qualities which keeps us from realizing our divinity, and they have to be offered as sacrifice. See, this is why, in Vedic Yajnas, many people think there's animal sacrifice going on in the Vedas. But as Swami has clearly explained, these animal sacrifices are nothing but the animal qualities in us should be sacrificed. There's no point in externally sacrificing an animal. All this is, they may be symbolizing, but the symbolism is inside. The animal quality in us have to be sacrificed. That comes through sense control, and that's the real yajna. And for this purpose, the seventh Anuvaka gives us the prayers which are required so that we can do this job of Antar Yajna, which is the essence of all yajnas, which is the necessary worship which we have to do as prayer in this world, even for worldly benefits of all kinds. So that is the essence of this Anuvaka. Actually, I had prepared only this much, where I just returned and I didn't have time to extend further. We can start the eighth Anuvaka next week, which is called Bahiranga, so outward yajnas. That can be covered in the next week. If there are any questions, it's a shorter class, I guess. It's just turning to be 10 o'clock. But if there are any questions, I will answer if I'm able to. Saira. Yes, Brother Dasan.
Sairam, brother, could you please summarize the purpose of the yajna again, please? It's a very, very good discourse, brother. Yeah.
Saira, brother.
Thank you.
So this, I think maybe repetition, but see, the thing is, God has in His creation, He has given us all forms of divine energy which is resident in us. Any divinity present out is also present within us, and unless we can tap into those divine energies and they work for our benefit and cooperate with us, with our mind contemplating on each of this, we will not be able to do positive things with our mind. So this Antar Yajna is being able to tap into all the positive divine energies present within us, which God has given, with the help of Sri Rudra, and making our mind focus on them after controlling the senses. And through this process, we are able to focus on these divine energies and make them manifest in our words, speech, and actions, and whatever materializes from our actions. This process is called Antar Yajna, which can be offered to the Lord. So this Anuvaka basically allows us to identify each of the important aspects of divinity present within us. And through this process, we offer as sacrifice all our bad qualities, characteristics which we have earned through many lifetimes in various different forms of creation. Any residue of bad qualities which will naturally be present have to be offered and cleansed. That way we will attain our access to our divine self. That's the purpose of Antar Yajna, and this Anuvaka sort of guides us in that process. Sairam, brother, I hope that
Yes, Sairam, brother. Thank you very much, brother. At the same time, I like to mention what you said before. The purpose when you're doing the yajna is supposed to be a not for individual purpose. It's supposed to be a world with the people. Then it definitely will get the benefit to it. Thank you, brother Sairam. Very nice.
Because, brother, once we think it's for us, that means ahankara has come.
Yeah.
Ahankara has come. So that itself has to be offered first. So those are bad traits also which have to be offered.
Thank you, brother Sairam.
Sairam auntie, can you guys auntie?
Sairam, Arno, you said 10 senses. What are the 10 senses?
The 10 senses are 5 jnanendriyas, 5 karmendriyas.
Yeah.
Senses means, I know senses is not a very good term in English, but they don't have equivalent terms. Indriya, jnanendriya, the 5 jnanendriyas are the eyes, the nose, the tongue, the hearing, and the skin, through which we gain knowledge. Whatever we take from the world is through these 5. Whatever give out in this world is through another 5 called karmendriyas. They are the organ of excretion, organ of procreation, the feet, the legs, the hands, and the speech. So these are things which go out from us. Okay, and what we eat, we excrete. That is also going out of us. See, Jnanendriya takes in, Karmendriya gives out. So excretion.
Jnanendriya 5 and Karmendriya 5.
Yes, that's good.
Thank you. Another thing is, we are doing Antarya Yajna every day, isn't that?
We should do. There's so much activity going on internally in us, but are they yajnas is the question. Because if we do not do them properly and offer it to the Lord, they may also give rise to something negative in this world. So the thing is, we have an opportunity to do Antaryajna every day at all points in time, because there's already Antar activity going on, Antar karma is going on. But do all the karmas, actions become yajna is the question. Yajna is that which we offer as sacrifice, whereas otherwise we will multiply. We can do something completely negative also through our internal instruments.
So it should be done properly.
It should be done properly with control, and we should direct the senses in the right path, and that's what it is. Otherwise, it will run after the whims and fancies of our senses, and that's what Swami has talked about.
Okay, thank you very much, Aruna.
Sairam. Sairam Kalyani.
Sairam, uncle. You had mentioned that a yajna cannot be performed if there's no wife.
Yes.
Is this like regarding like the grihastha, I guess, who's like, for example, Rama was doing a yajna, or is it like the Brahmins who are like actually performing the yajna?
So, see, if whoever the Brahmins are performing the yajna on behalf of somebody. Brahmins are nothing but agents. But even the agents have to, the head priest will have to have his wife seated next, and she undertakes certain rituals or activities during the yajna, but she has to also pour the soma yajna, soma juice and so on. So they basically represent the Brahmana and his wife represent the person who is performing, who has undertaken the sacrifice as representatives. So they represent the husband and wife who is a grihastha ashrama person. So these yajnas are prescribed for grihastha ashramis. And so they are the ones who are qualified to perform this yajna. And so the Brahmana and his wife actually represent whoever is performing. So basically you can say why a husband and wife, because the recognition by the Vedic rishis is that both the masculine and the feminine are needed for anything good in this world to happen. Even a child is to be born, a man and woman is needed. Even if you take a seed, a flower, there has to be some pollination happen. So in this world, there's a masculine energy and the feminine energy. There are various entities which embody them. They have to come together for something positive to happen. So the same way, the same principle applies to yajna also. So that is, when you invoke Shiva, you have to invoke Shakti. When you invoke Vishnu, you have to invoke Lakshmi. So this recognition of equal role, though their real roles may be different, the equal importance, necessity of both these aspects of divinity is recognized. That's what I would say. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. So does that mean like, so if a Brahmin, it doesn't have a wife, like they wouldn't be able to perform yajna?
Certain rituals, no. See, a Brahmana with certain qualification only can perform certain rituals. Otherwise, they are a brahmachari. Okay, until they get to Grihastha Ashrama, they are not qualified. So Swami actually on this, when I think it may be digression, but we have time, so I will spend time. When Dasharatha invited Rishi Shringa for performing the yajna for getting Rama and all the brothers were born, Rishi Shringa came with his wife. Her name is Shanta. I don't know how many of you know. Shanta is actually the daughter of Dasharatha. Dasharatha had a daughter called Shanta. She was given away in marriage to Rishi Shringa. Apparently, Dasharatha himself had forgotten. That's what Swami says. Because he says, even in those days, sometimes women were not given importance. But these are Swami's words. I can get the discourse and give it to you all. But then Swami says, when Rishi Shringa came, most of the rituals were done by Shanta. And because of that only, that yajna was very fruitful. And Sri Rama was born. And he was telling, it's unfortunate that Dasharatha or Rishi Shringa was doing the yajna, but actually Shanta was doing most of the rituals. So Shanta, who accompanied Rishi Shringa, was an equal partner in the performing of the yajna, and that brought about the birth of Sri Rama and the brothers. But some of these aspects have been forgotten or ignored because of time, because of adharma, whatever you want to call it. So women always had an equal and important part. They had a different part. Each one had their own part, but both of them were equally important. So I don't know if you're interested, I will pass on that discourse. You can listen and read. Saira. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And then, like, for example, like marriage ceremonies, they're also considered yajnas, right?
Yes, everything is yajna.
I guess like nowadays, like when you see most marriage ceremonies, you don't see the wife of the priest.
The thing is they invoke, they do avahana. But usually when you are supposed to, when you give the priest, if she may not be present, like required to be present during, because there is no ritual which requires it. However, when you give a gift to the Brahmin who has performed, you have to give a gift to the wife also. Okay, so that's reality. But modern day world, many things have changed. People ignore. That's the reality. If you go back to the original source, things will get too complicated. But that's reality. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
Silence. Yes, Brother Kumar.
That's a very good question by Sister Kalyani, but I was about to ask, but you answered many of those stuff. But from Baba's perspective, I know with time everything changed. That's fantastic what you said at the end. But with Baba's discourses, like say, when someone is praying at home, but say they say Tavaram or Tiruvasakam or whatever you recite to Shiva or Vishnu, but you're praying on your own, right? But you're not asking for anything, but you're just praying. Because in the love of those meaning behind the Tavaram, you're praying and you are not asking anything, because when you think this is already someone has sung the Tavaram, right? But you are singing in the glory of Shiva or Vishnu or whoever the deity is. What is that kind of yajna is referred under Baba's? You're not asking for anything, it's just praying.
Very good question, brother. So the thing is, that's individual preparation. In everything, there's an individual preparation. Any form of prayer actually cleanses us, gives us what's called chitta shuddhi. Just like, when you have shower, You have to have shower. Why are you taking shower? Cleansing yourself, purifying yourself. So each person has to do it. The husband has to do internal cleansing. The wife has to do internal cleansing. That is only one aspect of prayer or this yajna. But then in this world, for anything to be done, people have to come together to do. So that also cannot be ignored. So individual sadhana is important. Collective sadhana is also important. So for example, an individual should do sadhana. Then as a family, they should do sadhana. Then as a collective community, they should do sadhana. So each of them have their own role in this society and in this creation. See, one thing alone is not going to help this world. So individual preparation of the family, preparation of the community, all these form sadhana, and we cannot neglect anyone. All of them are equally essential for good things to happen in this world. And if people say, I'm just doing, even if you take rishis, most of the rishis were married. They did their own penance, but they imparted knowledge. They established rishikula. They invited people. The wives of the rishis fed the children. They were looked after as children. So in this world, we are not an island by ourselves. Man is not an island. We do not exist in isolation. So any form of worship, prayer has to have all three aspects for it to be really fruitful and complete. That is the purpose. I hope. Brother Kumar, I hope I answered the question reasonably. Okay. I think Brother Kumar maybe lost.
No. I got the point. I just wanted to know whether Baba ever, because sometimes when you sing Thevaram, so for Muruga or Pullayar, but not thinking anything in return, because you sing that in the glory. Sometimes you cry when someone else sings, right? So that's what I want to know, what type of yagna, what type of it falls under. Thank you.
So yes, that is bhakti. That's bhakti. Swami has spoken highly about it. But the reality is we do engage in action along with people. So that's also equally important.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Yes, Brother Dasan.
Yes, Sairam, brother. Today only I came to know, brother, that Swaha means that Agni's wife. Then in the Yoga Kunda, when we do a mantra that Om Namachivaya Swaha, we do all kind of mantras. That means Agni's wife is the one taking all those whatever we offered to each individual god.
You have to invoke her also is one of the meanings. Because unless you call out to somebody, they will not respond and do what they have to do. So I hope.
Thank you, brother.
That's one of the explanations. Many there. Swami's Vahinis has all these brothers. I mean, I didn't want to introduce this, but that's not a word which is here. But I couldn't help just to explain the Patni.
Yeah.
The Patni Vataha. I thought I will just mention it. Okay, Sairam.
Sairam. Thank you.
Yes, Kalyani, Sairam.
Sairam, uncle. There was a part where it says the son can wipe out the bad deeds of the father.
Yes.
But I thought that wasn't possible. Like with the story of Valmiki, how he went and asked his family, like when he was still the robber, he asked his family if they would share in his bad karma, and they said no.
Yeah, they said no. Yes. See, if the son refuses, the father is. See, it's believed. See, there are things we can't do by ourselves. Everything cannot be done by us. We need the help of the society, people around, to discharge some things. That's a reality in this world. We can do everything which is within our ability, we should always do. But the reality is we are not totally self-reliant in every aspect. So other people are also involved. But you can ask, how can the son remove the sins of the father? I think that's the question. So let's give this example of, father was indebted, he had taken a mortgage. Let's take a mortgage. Okay, the house is under mortgage. The father is now cannot work. Okay, but he has given birth to a son whom he has looked after. So the son is indebted to the father. So the son who understands his debt to the father can take action to pay off the debt the father owes. If the son does that, the father's debt is paid off. And this whatever the son does, the father has a rightful ownership of that, because he is the father who has given birth to him. So father has a stake in what the son makes, what the son does. So a son is capable of discharging the debts of the father. So the same way the son is capable of discharging the sins of the father, if the son takes that as something which he would like to do. So that's why they say, if someone liberates oneself, one who has become a jnani, okay, they say they liberate 3 generations before and 3 generations after. So 7 generations are liberated by someone who is a jnani, is something which is told in Sanatana. That means that person is capable of discharging the debts of 3 generations upwards, and will also be able to leave enough wealth for 3 generations downward, spiritual wealth. So a son is capable of discharging the debts and removing the sins of the father. That's why the word putra comes. Putra means there is apparently a hell called Putri and Putra. These are 2 people who can help the parents escape that hell of Put. So this is the name for meaning for Putra and Putri. So that is why people want to have children, because that person is capable of liberating. But Swami will also say there are many cases, even without children, you can be liberated. Like great jnanis, like Sukha, he didn't have any children, but he himself is jnani, so no one needs to liberate them. But if we are unable to liberate ourselves, hopefully there are children who becomes jnanis and who can liberate us also. So this is the meaning. I hope I answered your question okay, or not, I don't know.
Yes, thank you. And just like how it says this, we do things like Shraddha to discharge the debt to one's parents, and all this like debt that we have towards our ancestors. It just feels like even though like you're doing a yajna for the benefit of the whole world, it still seems like there's this attachment to your ancestors, like your particular lineage. Like,
so it is the ancestors means, if you take the word Vishvedeva, all gods. So Pitrus are anyone who has contributed to you. It is not a sense of attachment, it's a sense of recognition of our existence. So for example, if you have to discharge your debt to your father, means the idea is by discharging the debt to your own parents, you are discharging debt to all the people. You don't say, you should not do it a sense of attachment. It's my father, so I have to do. No. It's a person who has given birth to this body, so I have a debt I pay to this person, and through this person, the discharge, I'm able to help everyone else in this world. That is the idea. Because when the rishis do yajnas, they have they understand the interconnectedness of everything in this world. For example, if the heart pumps blood, the heart only puts the blood in the vein next to it, or not artery next to it, sorry. But the artery will take the blood everywhere. So you want to pump the blood, or the heart doesn't say, I want to pump the blood to brain, to the lungs, to the kidneys, it just pumps with the understanding that this will reach everywhere. That is the purpose of Agni. Agni will take it wherever it is needed. But to recognize the debt, only direct debt to somebody who has given birth to you in the body, and you understand that person is indebted to somebody else. That person is indebted to somebody else. So there's an interconnectedness, the entire world. We should not ignore. It's not an insular, a nuclear family. No, it's not that sense. In India, there was always joint families. Generations lived together. So this idea of our parents, our children, A nuclear family is a very Western concept, which is very new, it's antithesis of Vedic yajna, Vedic thinking, Vedic philosophy. So Vedic seers always recognize, but the thing is, you pay the debt through somebody whom you can see in front of you. And that is the way to take. So even if you go to Shraddam, Pindam, they will, say your father, your father's father, your father's father's father. And then they will also put a common one for all the Pitrus. That is the way proper Shraddha is done. So I hope you understand.
Yes, thank you so much. That clarifies.
So it's 10:21. If there are no questions, I can close the session. And we'll meet again next week and do 8th Anuvaka.
Brother, can I just, not a question, but I just wanted to understand this sentence here. One who conquered the desire is master of this world, and the next, what is referred by the next? Please,
So
thank you.
yes, the next world, sister.
Next world,
Next
that's
world
next birth.
See,
Next here means next.
the thing is, there's something next which after we die. Whether it can be a next birth, that means we are coming back to the same world, or we are going to some other world. Okay, onward journey. You can say Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, Suvarloka, Mahaloka, Tapaloka. You can go to any of the worlds. But once if you master your desires today, you have mastered it forever. Wherever you go, you will not be affected by desire. But that mastery of desire has to happen in this world.
Okay.
The next world, it means depending on what our promotion status is, we can go to different lokas. Or we can, if you have failed, we may come back to the same loka, or we may go down also. But if we have no desire, we will not be born again here. We will be moving on. But there also, we will not be affected by
the
anything,
desire.
because we will be totally masters. That's the understanding.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam Sakwanti.
Sairam, I don't know. Jnana Indriyas, they don't relate to underkaranas, right? Jnana Indriyas, can you explain to me?
So the word Antakarana is inner instrument. Antakarana is generally referred to mind, manas, buddhi, chittam, and ahankara. They are the indriyas which we refer to are generally the ones which connect the internal organ with the external world. The indriyas are all outwardly focused. They are to get information from outside, and so they are basically like the entrance between. They're the ones who connect the internal and external, whereas antakaranas are inner instruments. They don't go out.
They don't go out.
They don't go out. They only can go. They can contact the world only through the indriyas. So antakaranas are usually manas, buddhi, chittam, and ahankara.
Ahankara.
But all of them together are called as one instrument also.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Sairam, sister.
Sairam.
So if everyone is okay, we will close the session with Samastaloka. Sairam. Om Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Sairam, everyone.